this is a review. In lesson 1, we talked about place value. And I had told you at that time that was something you have to know. You've got to know place value. You're not given a place value chart when you take the GED. So you've got decimal places in front of the decimal point, or place values in front of the decimal point, and you have place values after the decimal point. All of the places after the decimal point end in THS. So this is tenths, this is hundredths, this is thousandths, this is 10,000ths. On this side of the decimal point, the first place is the ones, or we also sometimes call it the nearest whole number. Then we have tens, hundreds, thousands. Okay, and so that first lesson, all of our problems dealt with either identifying which place value a number was in, or a digit was in a certain number, or being asked which digit is in a particular place value given a particular number. On lesson 2. Lesson 2 was on rounding. Remember the steps for rounding. We circle the target. Then step 2 is to look next door. Then step 3 is 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. Okay, and these we're talking about the target. The raise the score and let it rest would be the target value. The 5 or more and the 4 or less are whatever number is next door. And then the last step was to either drop or fill. Either drop off decimal values after the decimal point, or fill remaining place values with zeros. So, for example, if we have the number 459 and we're asked to round to nearest hundreds. So the hundreds place is 4, that's our target. We look next door. 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. The 5 tells us to take that 4 and bump it up to a 5. And then we fill the other the other place values with zeros. So 459 rounds to 500 when we're rounding to the nearest hundreds. let's say I have 2.3225, and we're going to round to nearest hundredth. Okay, the TH at the end of the word tells us we are after the decimal point. Hundredths is the second place value after the decimal point. That's our target. We circle the target. We look next door. 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. 2 is 4 or less, so we let the 2 rest. The stuff in front stays the same. If we're dealing with decimals, the decimals after the target value drop. So we would not write 2.3200 because that indicates that you're rounding to the nearest 10,000. If there are digits in those places, it means you're rounding to those places. In this case, the last place being the 10,000ths. So we have to cut those off so that we are showing that we're rounding to the nearest hundredth in this case. So that was lesson 2. Then lesson 3. Lesson 3 was on comparing. In other words, which thing is bigger, which thing is smaller. When we were comparing with decimals, then we would look at the furthest left place value, and if the numbers didn't have the same number of place values, we would fill with zeros. So here they do. Look to the furthest left, 3 and 3, that doesn't help us. Then we start moving to the right. 5 in the 10th place, 5 in the 10th place, that doesn't help us. Move to the right. 2 in the hundredths place, that doesn't help us. Move further to the right. 1 and 7. 7 is bigger than 1, so 3.527 is bigger than 3.521. If we had 2/9 and 1/7, and we want to know which of these is bigger, then we used what was called the butterfly method. And in the butterfly method, we cross multiply. 9 times 1 is 9. 7 times 2 is 14. Then we look at these numbers up here, and whichever number is bigger, that fraction is bigger. So 2/9 is bigger than 1/7. So we would put a greater than sign. 2/9 is greater than 1/7. So that was lesson 3. That's all we did in that lesson. Then in lesson 4, we went to ordering fractions and decimals. And when I say ordering, I don't mean telling them what to do, like a army officer, or ordering them from a restaurant. I'll take 3 2/9 and I'll take a 0.57, and for dessert I'll have a 3.25. We're talking about putting them putting fractions and decimals in order, either largest down to smallest or smallest up to largest. And so, for example, if I had 1 3/4, 2/3, 10/7, 2 1/6, 2/9, then we're going to have 5 numbers. And let's say this one asks us to do largest to smallest. Okay. When we were learning this, we said we need to go in and make sure that all the numbers are in the same format. So I have 1 3/4, so that can stay. 2/3, that's a fraction, that can stay. 10/7 is an improper fraction, so we need to make that a mixed number. 7 will go into 10 once, and there are 3 left over. 2 1/6 can stay, 2/9 can stay. Alright, so we have one whole and a fractional amount. Here is just a small fractional amount. Here we have a 1 whole and something left over. Here we have 2 and something left over, and here just a fractional amount. So if we're going from largest to smallest, that right there is the largest number. That's first, because there aren't any other numbers that are 2 or more. Then our fractions, they're going to be the smallest. One of them's going to go here, and one of them's going to go here. Well, then we need to compare them. I need to take 2/3 and 2/9, and I need to do butterfly method. 3 times 2 is 6. 9 times 2 is 18. 18 is bigger than 6, so 2/3 is bigger than 2/9. So I know now that 2/3 is going to go here. 2/9 is the smallest amount of all of them. It's going to go last. Now, if you had answer choices A, B, C, D, then you would start looking to see which answer choices had these in this spot, and you may not even have to deal with the 1 3/4 and 1 3/10. But unfortunately, we don't have that, so we're going to have to determine which of these is bigger. Well, since both of them have a whole number part of 1, then all I need to compare is the fractional part. So I need to compare 3/4 and 3/10. Butterfly method. 4 times 3 is 12. 10 times 3 is 30. 30 is bigger than 12. So the 3/4 is bigger than 3/10, which means 1 3/4 is bigger than 1 3/10. So there are my numbers, and probably the only thing that would be really I should do is not use this, use the original number of 10/7. Then if I have the numbers up, let's say I have 4.2 and I have 4.01 and I have 4.26 and I have 3.91 and I have 2.4. Then again, we're going to need to put these in order. This time we're going to go smallest to largest. So you have to make sure you're looking to see what order do they want them in. Okay, so we have 4, 4, 4, 3, and 2. So the smallest number is 2.4. Then since all three of these are 4s, then 3.91 is the next number. And then we need to compare 4.2, and I'm going to put a 0 there because these have 2 decimal places, and 4.26. The 4s don't help me. The 2s show me that, okay, the 4.20 and 4.26 are bigger than 4.01, so that's got to be the next number. And then 4.20 is smaller than 4.26. 4.26 is the largest of the numbers, and 4.2, which is the original number, is next. So there are those numbers ordered. I guarantee you, you will have one of those kind of problems on your test. Guarantee. The only thing that'll be different is that they're going to start mixing them. They're going to mix the numbers up and add in a couple of other things. So you might have 3/4 and 0.729 and 62% and so forth. And we'll learn how to do that coming up real soon. But it's basically the same. Okay? Alright, then we moved to lesson 5. Lesson 5 was on converting decimals to fraction, fraction to decimal. Let me do this. Okay, so first of all, if we look at changing a fraction to a decimal. So let's say we have 3/4. Well, if you have your calculator, if this is on a calculator part of the test, then you would literally punch in what you see and what you read here. You would punch in the 3 key, the divided by key, the 4 key, and the equal key, and you'll get 0.75. If you had to do it by hand, the number on the bottom is getting divided into the number on the bottom. On the top. We're taking 4 and dividing it into 3. 3 being divided by 4. So 4 won't go into 3. We add a decimal. 4 will go into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. We get a 2. We have to add another 0. It comes down. 4 going to 25 times, and then there's no remainder. It's 0.75. If we're doing decimals to fractions, then we have to look at how many decimal places we have. If I'm going to take 0.3 and change it into a fraction, all of the denominators for decimals are either 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, all multiples of 10. So since there is one decimal place, then our number underneath is going to have 1 0. And then this goes on the top. 0.3 is 3/10. We always also need to be careful about reducing. Okay. There is no reducing with decimals, but with fractions we can reduce. If you had 0.629, then that means we're going to have 3 decimal places. So our denominator is 1,000, 3 zeros, and we put 629 on the top. And 629 and 1000 will not reduce, so that is our answer. But if I had 0.45, 2 decimal places, so this is over 100, and we have 45, but 45 and 100 can reduce because 45 is 5 times 9, 100 is 5 times 20. The 5's divide out, we're left with 9 over 20. Okay. Then we went to lesson 6. Lesson 6 was on geometry. About 1/4 to 1/3 of the test is geometry. So you have to know your geometry because you will not pass the GED if you don't know any geometry. And so in this lesson, we looked at adjacent angles. Those are angles that are next to each other. They have the same vertex and share a side. We talked about vertical angles. Those are angles that are formed by lines that intersect and they're across from each other and they are equal to each other. We talked about complementary. Complementary angles are angles that add up to 90 degrees. Two angles that add to 90 degrees. We talked about supplementary. It's really supplementary. Supplementary angles are 2 angles that add to 180 degrees. 180 degrees. We talked about right angles. Right angles being angles that measure exactly 90 degrees. We talked about straight angles. Straight angles being angles that measure 180 degrees. And then finally we did perimeter. Okay. So as an example, okay, and let's say we are told that the measure of angle XYZ is 73 degrees and the measure of angle AYZ is 50 degrees. And we want to know what is the measure of angle XYA. Well, XYZ, this big angle here, is 73 degrees. Okay, so this angle opens up 73 degrees. Angle AYZ, this angle is 50 degrees. Well, this angle plus this angle put together make the big angle. So if this much of it's 50 and the whole thing is 73, to find XYA, this angle, we have to take 73 degrees and subtract 50 degrees, and we get 23 degrees. So sometimes you are adding, sometimes you are subtracting. It just depends on the problem. So let's say you had also this angle. And this picture was drawn. Well, The big angle is 90 degrees. And the way I know that is this little square in the corner. The square in the corner indicates that this much is 90 degrees. This part of it, because these two angles are inside of each other, this much is 20 degrees. Well, to open up 90 degrees, we would have to go this much more. So we have to take 90 and subtract 20 and get 70 degrees. So this angle is 70 degrees. We talked about angles being complementary and supplementary. If I give you an angle of 40 degrees, and I ask what is the complement, then it's asking what angle do you put with 40 degrees to get 90 degrees. Complementary angles are two angles that add to 90, so the answer would be 50 degrees. Same angle if they asked what is the supplement. Supplementary angles are two angles that add to 180 degrees. So if I have 40 degrees, the angle that I would have to put with it to get 180 degrees would be 140 degrees. And then we looked at problems like this. You'll have to excuse my rough drawing. And we want to know the perimeter. The perimeter is the distance around. You add up all of the sides. So 35 plus 100 plus 60 plus 40 plus, this doesn't have a length. Neither does this. So I've got to take and use what I know. Okay? I know that from here to here is 100 feet. It says so right there. From here to here is 100 feet. I know that from here to here is 40 feet. Well, that matches here. So this much is 40 feet. It's the same as this over here. If I took that side and moved it over, it would sit right here and it would be 40 feet long. Well, then the rest of the length, if this much of it's 40 and the whole thing is 100, this has got to be 60. 100 minus 40. Well, this matches this. This is the same length as this. So this is 60 feet. Then to find this side, we know this is 60 feet. From here to here is 35 feet. If we pulled that down, it would go from here to here, and it would be 35. Well, we need to know what the rest of it is. If the whole thing, this whole length is 60 feet, and that much of it's 35, then 60 minus 35 is 25. So this is 25. Well, the reason I need that is because from here to here is 25. That matches from here to here. This is 25 feet. Now I have all of the sides. I have 35 feet plus 100 feet plus 60 feet plus 40 feet plus 25 feet plus 60 feet. And when we add all that together, we get 320 feet. Okay? I guarantee you, you're going to have one of these on your test. You're going to. Something like this. And I'm going to tell you, and this was 320 feet. I'm going to tell you, one of their answer choices, you know, one of them here is going to be 320 feet, but another one of the answer choices is going to be 35 plus 100 plus 60 plus 40, which is 235. They're going to see if you just add up these sides and ignore these two sides. That'll be an answer choice. So you have to make sure that you are doing all of the sides, and if a side is missing, then there is something there that will help you find that side. If you ever look at a set of house plans, they don't have every single length listed. That's because if they know this is 100 feet, they don't need to give this dimension. If this is 40, they don't need to give that dimension. It's 60 feet, because from here to here is the same as it is from here to here. If it isn't, then you're going to have a wonky house. Probably not going to stand up very long because the walls aren't going to be straight. Okay? And then the last lesson was on mean, median, mode, and range. Almost guarantee you're going to have something that's going to ask you about the mean or the median or the mode or the range on the math and on the science. Mean questions about the mean, they pop up in the science test. So let's say I have the following data values: 100, 95, 80, 100, 85, 95, 100, and 95. Well, the first thing we should do is put these in order. The smallest is 80. Then we have 85. Then we have what? 95. And another 95. And another 95. And then we have 100. And another 100. And another 100. Okay. Our n value, the number of elements, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, to calculate the mean, we first of all have to add 80 plus 85 plus 95 plus 95 plus 95 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100, and when you do that you get 750. Then we have to take 750 and divide it by the number of elements, which is 8, and we get 93.75. The median. The median is the number value in the middle. Well, we have 8 values. So if we look, the number in the middle is not one number, it's 2 numbers. There are 3 on the right, 3 values on the left, so those are in the middle. When you have 2 numbers in the middle, you add them together 95 and 95 is 190, and then you divide them by 2. You're finding the mean or the average of those two numbers. And 190 divided by 2 is 95. Then the mode is the value that appears the most. Mode, most. Well, I have 3 95s and I have 3 100s. So the mode is 95 and 100. You can have multiple modes. You can also have no mode if there is no value that is repeated. And then finally the range is the highest number minus the lowest number. 100 minus 80 is 20. So that is what we have spent the last several weeks, probably even a month or more, working on these 7 lessons. Okay.
If you liked this video, please click the thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please click the subscribe button. If you want to be notified about new videos, please click the notification button.